All right, the Hainesport Township Joint Land Use Board for the meeting of November 7th, 2024 is called to order. I'm Tom McKay, Chairman, and we'll begin by a flag salute. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Good evening. I'm going to follow our agenda in order, in part and not in part. So we'll do sunshine law announcement first.
Notice of this meeting was published in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act.
All right. The announcement that we always make is no new business after 10:30, which means we won't start anything new after 10:30. If it's ongoing before 10:30, we'll finish it up that night. We have a roll call, please, and a termination if we have a quorum.
Mrs. Torti? Here. Mrs. Kelly? Here. Mayor Gilmore? Here. Mr. Jacochi?
Here.
Mrs. Baggio? Here. Mr. C. Murphy?
Here.
Ms. Cosco? Here. Mr. Bradley?
Here.
Mr. Novarita?
Here.
Mr. Holden?
Here.
Mr. R. Murphy?
Here.
Mr. McKay?
Here.
Mr. McKay?
Here. All right. We have several items for business today, A through D, but I'm going to take them a little out of order. Mr. Floyd, I think you're here, and your task is simply to adjourn this, or excuse me, get an extension of time.
That is correct, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Why don't you give us a brief statement of what you are looking for and who you represent and why you need the time.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, for the record, members of the board, my name is Michael Floyd. I'm an attorney with Archer & Griner, appearing on behalf of the applicant BTC3 Hainesport LC Urban Renewal, which has requested a one-year extension of a minor subdivision that was granted by this board on March 6, 2024, and memorialized in a resolution adopted on April 3rd, 2024. So we're seeking a one-year extension until April 3rd, 2025. Just to refresh the board's recollection, this minor subdivision approval relates to a land swap between the applicant and the State of New Jersey Department of Transportation. And the purpose of that land swap is to effectuate a new full movement junk handle along Route 38 near the intersection with the Mount Holly bypass. The applicant has been proceeding diligently in pursuing all the required permits and approvals from DOT, which were issued. The applicant has also entered into a fully executed purchase and sale agreement with the State of New Jersey that was approved by the State House Commission, and the applicant has actually undertaken all of the Route 38 improvements, which include various new driveways in connection with the industrial development behind the property. However, the jug handle has not yet started construction. The applicant anticipates being able to start next month. However, we also anticipate that the DOT will shut down the project for the winter months, and we'll have to recommence the jug handle improvements in the spring. And that's why we're asking for this extension of 1 year until April 2025. But again, the applicant has been proceeding with all due diligence with the DOT. DOT has been great to work with on this project, but again, it's a large project, and we do request a 1 year extension.
Okay. And to be more specific, I think this jug handle is at the traffic light where the road to the back road to the warehouse, to the shopping center, comes out to Route 38.
That is correct, Mr. Chairman, and it's intended to line up with the jug handle, I'll say across Route 38 at Lawrence Boulevard.
All right. Thank you very much. Do any board members have any questions on the applicant's request? Hearing none, I'm going to allow public comment on this, although I doubt there would be any. But are there members of the public that want to speak on this issue?
I do. I'd like to have, do I have to step up?
Yes, you do.
Sorry, it's my first time here.
You have to tell us, you have to tell us your name,
Oh, swear you, okay,
where you live, and then be sworn in.
okay. My name is Vince Dothert. I live at 26 Patriot Way in Hainesport, New Jersey.
Okay.
You swear or affirm testimony you give will be the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
So my question was, I was trying to understand, I don't know if he has a picture of the jug handle. I thought it was going to be something different, but now I think I understand the jug handle is going to be across from like the ShopRite and that new warehouse that's there.
That's where it's
on the
gonna
other
be.
side of Route 38.
That's where it's going to be. And subject to Mr. Floyd correcting me, there's presently a jug handle there. They're going to put in what I call a reverse jug handle, which would flow the traffic through the light around and back to the traffic light. Is that correct, Mr. Floyd?
That is correct.
And I'm sorry, your name again, sir, was?
Michael.
Michael? And I guess from Mike, I'm trying to understand also, for the warehouses that are going up there, and maybe this is beyond what I'm allowed to ask today, the train that runs there, is that train going to continue to run, and will it be making deliveries to those warehouses? Will I get more traffic now behind my house than I've had for the last 21 years?
Rail traffic.
Yes.
Mr. Floyd?
So the answer is there are no rail spurs coming into this project, so you're not going to receive, we will not be taking any deliveries via rail for these two new buildings. I can't speak for Conrail and the frequency of those trains, but this project will not have any impact on the frequency of trains coming through.
Okay. If there's no reason for Conrail, that traffic or that train to continue to come down those tracks, I'll speak on the last assessment I had for my personal property, my home there. And it just happened to be the train's coming by when he's making an assessment on my home. And he says, the reason why I'm dropping the value of your home is because you've got a train running back here. I says, yeah, but it's been there for 21 years. He says, well, I see new warehouses are coming up. That's going to be a problem. I cannot give you the assessed value that you used to have on your property. I'm wondering.
Maybe that's a good thing in the short term.
An assessed value by the township maybe would be a good thing, but from a property value from the mortgage company, that's not a good thing. When they say your home is worth less because of the rail traffic.
They don't translate, though, necessarily, because the banks do independent appraisals of their own. You know that.
I do know that, sir.
Yes.
But I'm just what I'm trying to find out is if there's going to be more traffic. I think he's saying, no, not from their business, that entity. My other reason is, why do they even have to come back there? If all the traffic or the traffic that stopped for that, it's not at his business, or if business is to be, but it ends back at the industrial park, why do they even have to, that train have to come this far to the township?
You are asking a question that is very legitimate, but well beyond the ability of this board to deal with tonight. The board is only here for an extremely limited purpose, to deal with the extension requested by Mr. Floyd and his client. You're asking for planning issues that this board is not empowered to deal with at this time. My suggestion is that you might want to contact the county planning board.
County.
You might want to speak to your own personal attorney if you have one, and get advice from him.
I have a bunch of
But it's not something that we can do, and besides that, that's a railroad spur. It probably has some jurisdiction over it by the federal government. And so that's another entity that you would have to talk to and deal with. It's not an easy question you raise.
Mr. McKay, you and the board, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
If I may offer Mr. Stocker contact information to Conrail, and perhaps you can connect with them and ask a direct question.
I would appreciate it.
Okay. I'll go get my card for you so you can.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Stocker, no problem. Any other questions besides Mr. Stocker's? Yes, please come up. Same routine.
Sir, let me swear you in. You swear or affirm the testimony you give to be the truth, full truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do. My name's Charles Bloom, 204 Angleside in Hainesport. I might shed a little bit of light to the train thing. That's actually, they have a junction point, so what they're doing is they're unloading cars and loading cars up for the industrial complex. At least that's what I normally see, because I'm right, my property's right up against the tracks as well.
And they live in the back of the house sometimes, man.
Yeah. I just had a quick, does this have to do with the new warehouse side jug handle, or is this a different, on the opposite side of 38?
It's the
Like by
alteration,
Stein's
the
above-
alteration, Mr. Floyd can tell you, but it's the alteration of an existing jug handle to reverse it in effect.
Okay, so this is going to be on the Stein, by the two new warehouses.
Correct. Just next to the
Stein Apothecary.
Nissan dealership, you know where that is?
Yes.
And then the warehouses are behind, it's on that side of Route 38.
Okay. I just had safety concerns with how close it's going to be to the actual houses, and as far as the noise that's going to be up, because they put up a sound wall to it, but the sound wall doesn't come anywhere close to that, and it really opens up to the two houses that are right behind Stein's Apothecary.
This whole jug handle correction,
Right.
changing it from one style of jug handle to the other, was extensively dealt with by this board in public
I know, and I was
session,
here for those meetings.
perhaps a year
Right, I
ago.
was here for all those meetings.
But if Mr. Floyd could give you a little snapshot of the safety issues.
So, and the jug handle itself is under the exclusive jurisdiction of the state. of
I-
the New Jersey
I-
Department of
I understand.
Transportation, while it was shown on the plans, the site plans for this board, we had to comply with all the DOT regulations, and it has been, I'll say, studied for years before we even went through the permit application process. So I'm more than willing to share with you all the plans,
Right.
along with anyone else in the audience, and we can walk you through the DOT process, but
I understand, but I mean, there's a bunch of stuff that's been approved and gone through by, I don't want to bring it up now, but I will, I guess after all those proceedings is the sound wall. I'm having issues with sound coming through there, but I don't want to bring that up now because that has nothing to do with the jug handle. There's been a lot of processes that were in the works that were supposed to be good for the residents around that thing, and a lot of the stuff has just gone through. Kathy's been, unfortunately, the brunt of my emails exchanges. So, yeah, I just want to bring up my concern. I know there's another meeting on the 1st for the extension. I didn't realize that it was actually coinciding with this because I was coming here. I got a certified letter in the mail saying December 1st is when the one-year extension was going to be up for approval for a township meeting.
I don't know, Mr. Floyd, you would have sent out a letter like that, probably, but I don't know about the date.
I wish I would
Expiration date.
have brought it, but obviously I
That was the
wasn't
date of
realizing that.
expiration.
Huh?
That's the expiration date, probably.
So our.
No, it said the committee meeting on the 1st of December.
So we had, this was the notice that, I don't know if you were on the notice that was mailed out, was for Wednesday, November 7th.
I had December 1st.
Okay.
So-
Well, I can't account.
Which is why a lot of my neighbors, I'm sure, aren't here for this meeting.
Well, you've spoken your piece, and that's good.
Yep, I appreciate your time.
All right, not a problem. Thank you. All right, is there anyone else, or I'm going to close the public session? Seeing no one?
I would add, Mr. Chairman, members of the public do have any questions, my contact information is of record with the township, along with Joe Fiero, who's the applicant's representative. And I would say that the township has been very responsive, coming back to the applicant with questions and concerns that have been raised by residents. So we hope to continue working with the township. And if there's any questions, we will meet the residents on site.
Thank you, Mr. Floyd, that's very helpful. Do members of the board have any other questions of
Yeah. If
Mr.
I-
Floyd in light of?
If I may add that there is something, the letter from October 4th does reference the original public hearing on December 1st of 2021,
Maybe I read it wrong.
right?
I have a question, please. So my concern is for you and the value of your house. Sir,
Can you see me from my picture?
I can see you, yes, sir, I can see you.
Okay.
So when your house was assessed originally, that they knew the railroad was back there, is that correct?
Yes, I mean, it's been there.
Forever,
House was built.
before the house was built, right? So are they saying to,
I'm sorry, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
yes,
It's two things. One is an assessment by the township for what the property value is.
right,
Another is an appraisal by the mortgage company that says this is how much your house is
Right,
worth.
right.
That's the one I'm talking about.
so this was a bank assessment,
Yes,
and now they're saying your house is worth less?
less.
Because they're afraid that the train's gonna stop at the warehouses back there? Is that the issue?
It happened to be they left the train cars out there that day. The Conrail parked their rail cars there, and they'll do it about once every other week. And it happened to be the appraisal guy was there that day, and he saw that, and he says, no, this house is not worth the previous appraisal value. You got a train factory in your backyard, but it's always been there.
Right.
I guess he couldn't look at those big cars and get past it. So he just decided he's gonna, take, it was only $50,000, but he said, I'm taking $50,000 off, but that is.
I got it as a commercial real estate appraiser for 35 years. That doesn't sound right to me. I'd be more than happy to talk to him. He couldn't prove that there's any more traffic with trains coming in. So his comparable properties would ideally be in the same neighborhood. Whatever affects them is going to affect your value. For him to say, well, I'm going to knock off some value right now because I saw a train, is ludicrous. Any appraiser would be offended by that, as I am. I'd be more than happy to talk to him and make sure that his head is in the right place on what he's intending to do.
Yes, sir.
Good, thank you.
All right, still trying to close out public comment? Okay, fine. It is closed. And now, any other members of the board who have a question of Mr. Floyd on this application? Hearing none, may I have a motion to address Mr. Floyd's petition?
So moved. Second.
All right. Any questions on the motion? I wouldn't think so. Hearing none, we'll have a roll call, please.
Mrs. Torti? Yes. Mayor Gilmore?
Yes.
Mr. Bradley?
Yes.
Mrs. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Tricocci?
Yes.
Mrs. Baggio?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Ms. Cosco?
Yes.
And Mr. McKay?
Yes.
Thank you very much for your time this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Floyd, appreciate it. On another calendar issue, there was case D on today, Verizon of New Jersey, Inc., which had to do with their warehouse maintenance facility on Lumberton Road. They need to revise that application, so that matter is being put off until the January meeting. And Paula, our January meeting is at 7 o'clock, what day?
No, it's January 8th at 6:30, is we start reorganization at 6:30, and the regular meeting will be immediately following.
All right, so if anybody's here on that matter, you're so advised. Now, we'll deal with that and the adjournment of that later on, but I just didn't want to have people sit here waiting for Verizon that wasn't going to come up. All right, the next matter we have is a presentation by the Hainesport Environmental Commission regarding the environmental resource inventory. Is there someone here from the Environmental Commission?
Good evening.
How are you?
I'm good. I don't? Okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. I'm Paula Yulin with the Hainesport Township Environmental Commission, and I'm going to ask you to look at this wall. That's what I'm going to be talking about. I'm here to present the environmental resource inventory developed by the Environmental Commission. It's in the trade, it's ERI. The ERI was developed as a volunteer project with practically no cost to the township. The ERI replaces one from the year 2000 developed by ARH and paid for by the township, along with a grant that covered half of the cost. Since that time, significantly more information has become publicly available via online sites providing geographic information systems or GIS imagery. The online sites include those developed by New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection, Rowan University, U.S. Geological Survey, and the U.S. Department of Ag, and others. One goal of updating the ERI was to make it more than a simple compendium of figures and tables with brief summaries. This ERI was designed to provide the township decision makers and professionals with easy accessible information and the resources for more in-depth research. We believe it can be particularly benefit new members of Joint Land Use Board, Township Committee, Environmental Commission, and the Green Team in the years to come. New Jersey law sanctions the creation of Environmental Commission and empowers them to develop ERIs. While environmental commissions are empowered to study and make recommendations concerning a variety of environmental and land use considerations, the purpose of the ERI is not to make recommendations. Rather, it provides a snapshot of the environmental conditions within Hainesport to inform township decision-makers and professionals. The ERI is a tool for township entities, including the Joint Land Use Board, Township Committee, Environmental Commission, Green Team, and the public. This ERI is voluminous with many appendices and is therefore designed as an online resource rather than a printed document. Including the appendices, the ERI paints a picture of the environment of Hainesport through over 150 figures and 11 tables. In each section, the narratives are intended to give the reader basic information regarding the topic and to define acronyms, describe the roles of agencies, and introduce figures and tables. Because knowledge is itself a resource, and because the narratives are not exhaustive books on each topic, each section ends with links to the relevant web pages where the reader can obtain additional information. In addition, Appendix A is comprised of internet links organized by topic. The draft ERI is currently on the Township Environmental Commission page. Clicking the link brings one to a web page for the draft ERI. The files currently on the web page are drafts. As you can see, there is a file with an ERI text, two files of report figures, a file of report tables, and appendices A through N. Some of the appendices have some appendices. For example, Appendix B has 5 sub-appendices, including the state plan map, Mount Holly quadrangle policy map, portions of the state map, and a map for the planned circuit trails in the vicinity of Hainesport. Appendix F has 21 sub-appendices, including one for geology and groundwater figures, a custom soil report from the U.S. Department of Agriculture, and 15 additional soil reports. These are typical of the report figures, which are all letter size. The figure on the left depicts open spaces. An annotation to the GIS image identifies the location of Creek Turn Park. The figure on the right depicts the development of Hainesport between 1966 and 2020, and the differences between lands converted from forest in green or farmland to yellow. This is a typical appendix figure. They are tabloid-sized if printed. This figure depicts wetlands in the northern portion of Hainesport Township. The ERI includes a disclaimer that the figures are to be used as a general reference and not intended to be used in lieu of site-specific surveys or project-specific analysis. Thank you for your time. This is an incredible ERI that is an absolute gift to not just to the Environmental Commission, but to all of us, created by Guy Hessel, who's here behind me, but he would rather have me do his speaking. But I do want to let you know, we have a very talented and dedicated citizen who has put this all together. It's an amazing gift to Hainesport Township.
Well, this is a very impressive presentation and obviously a very valuable resource. I know Mr. Hessel, based upon what you said, doesn't want to speak, but perhaps he can just stand up so we can at least see him. All right, thank you very much. This is online now?
The draft is online.
Okay.
And we're open for comments till November 15. So if anyone sees something that they want to comment, have a question about, feel free to give us a email.
All right, and you say this is online by going to the Environmental Commission
Yes.
website?
Yes.
Okay. What is next after comment period is over?
It will become it'll become our ERI.
All right, and this will also be online, I assume?
Yes,
In the same place?
yes.
Okay. And when would the commission, looking out at the future, be required to look at this or indicate that they would look at this again for
I
a
need to ask
redraft.
my commissioners a question. Is that okay if I ask my?
Sure,
commissioners?
yeah, if we can get, if that gives us an answer, sure.
It's going to be updated before the master plan gets updated, so it's going to be somewhat on that same cycle, and I think there's a resolution that's going, or
It
has
already
gone
has.
through, that indicates when it'll be updated, so it'll be updated sort of in sync with the master plan.
And you are part of the commission, your name?
Yes, Janice London.
Janice, thank you. Appreciate it. All right, well, the Joint Land Use Board gladly accepts this information, very, very valuable information. Thank you for your presentation tonight.
Thank you.
And you'll become a permanent member, a permanent part of the Joint Land Use file as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, very informative. The next and last matter that we have, given the Verizon adjournment, is a variance application, D-variance application on the behalf of Christoph Nowacki, and he has counsel, Mr. Nowacki.
Mr. McKay,
Yes,
I believe Mrs. Torti and I have to recuse ourselves.
you do, okay. And then we'll have two alternates stepping in.
No, Mr. McKay, no. For the use variance, there's only 7. You
Okay,
don't have anybody replace them.
all right, fine. So who are that, we just make, Paula, make sure the members who are going to vote on this know who they are now.
It would be Mr. Bradley, Mrs. Kelly, Mr. McKay, Ms. Costco, Mr. Chicoche, Ms. Faggio, and Mr. Murphy.
All right, good evening, sir. You're Doug Sklar?
I am, you got that right, thank you very much.
All right, all the way from Succothon. Nice
Yeah,
place.
yeah, we have an office over here in Marlton as well, my partner's down here in Marlton, and I'm the guy in the office that comes and does the land use stuff, so I'm taking the trip.
Okay. And you're seeking a variance for,
To maintain what I'm told now is a pigeon loft, not a pigeon coop, but I use the terminology that I knew at the time, which is pigeon coop.
understood. Now, I did have a couple of preliminary questions for you.
Sure.
First of all, why don't you introduce us with your firm name and your business address down here in South Jersey?
I'm going to give you my Succothon address only because
Fine.
I didn't memorize the one down in South Jersey.
That's no problem.
Doug Sklar, I'm with the law firm of Sklar and Sklar. My address up there is 164 Route 10, and that's in Succothon, New Jersey, which is Roxbury Township, in Morris County. And I represent Christoph Nowacki with regard to his seeking of a variance today.
Okay. Now, when I went through your application the other day, I noticed that there were a couple of blanks
Yeah, I'm going to fill in, that was my fault.
that I hoped you could fill in. Will you do that during your presentation?
I can do it now, obviously, in the narrative. You're talking about in the narrative section?
Right, the first narrative section.
It's going to be 3.5 years that he's lived there approximately. I think that's the first one.
Okay, and then you call it a coop, but we know now the proper termination is loft.
I've been told, yes.
Has existed on the property since blank.
Yeah, since the time that he moved in, which is that 3.5-year time period.
3.5 years. Okay,
Correct.
Ago.
And then the other part of it is he's been doing this his entire life. I think the other blank was how long he's been member of a specific association, which has been 8 years.
Right, 8 years. That's further down in the paragraph.
Right.
And I think there was actually one more.
Uh-oh.
And that is a blank on the following page of the narrative, second paragraph, where it says the garage was constructed in blank.
Well, the garage itself, I think, was there. He constructed the coop.
Maybe it's the coop, then. Yeah, okay, I see.
Yeah, just after moving in, which goes along with the 3.5 years.
So it's 3.5 years on that as well.
Yep.
Okay.
If I may, Chairman, I have, to supplement what I have there, I've made 10 copies of some photographs, which I think will be very illustrative and maybe answer some questions and help all of you maybe ask some questions, and I can sort of let you guys know what you're looking at as well. I don't know how to pass that out to...
But you can just hand them over to Paula.
Yes, I did. Thank you.
All right, looked at it already, so
I want to make sure that all the voting members can come in there.
are they packs? Is it easily
Yeah, it's safe.
Yeah.
There's 3
10 packs? Okay.
I'm going to Let me see, good. 1, 2, 3, and then have 3 up.
Okay. If I may approach.
Yes, and we'll mark these photos, 10 of them, you say?
Yeah, they're 10 of the same thing. 10 packages. I made 10 copies of the same thing for everybody.
Okay, but it's a package of 1,
3 photographs.
2, 3, 3 8 by 10 color photographs. And Paul, when you resume your seat, we'll mark this as Exhibit A
Very good, I appreciate that.
today. Now, one other thing that I'd like you to mark, have you done the appropriate notice to people within 200 feet?
Yeah, I do have, I have it, I had to do it for Lumberton because it's on the border, so I have all that information here. If it's a little bit disjointed, I did email almost all of them except for just 2 of the green cards, and I received most, if not all, the green cards back by yesterday. I had, I think, 2 missing. So if I could get that to Paula, probably in a little bit more organized fashion tomorrow morning, first thing.
All right, I'd like to reserve Exhibit B for that material, even though we don't have all of it at this point. And you're representing to us that everybody within 200 feet has gotten notice?
Yes, I'll make that representation.
Okay. All right. With that background, you can start your presentation, please.
Thank you very much. I stand before you today not, at least from my perspective, this is a first for me after 35 years practicing law and being before planning boards and whatnot. I have a general practice of law, so this is not the only thing I do. I do trial work and many other things. As close as I've come is having a lady who wanted pet ducks in a coop on her property in another town, and this one caught me a little bit by surprise, because what we're talking about here today is essentially racing pigeons, and to the point where, as you'll find out, depending upon your questioning, these are pets. And there's a very serious, several serious organizations within the state of New Jersey that do this. And if you look in the back right portion of the meeting room, there's 6 or 7 people from various associations who are part of different organizations, all of whom raise pigeons. Many of them showed up today just for moral support. In addition to my applicant who's sitting back there, there is the president of the Central Jersey Combine, which is an umbrella organization of pigeon racing, which has 20 sub-organizations underneath it, as well as the president of the Queen City Pigeon Club and the Metuchen Pigeon Club, who at some point I may or may not ask to be sworn in. It depends upon your questioning. This is less, I think this will be a lot less presentation by me and questioning by me, and I think more fielding of questions from the various board members, because when I first took this on, it's of great interest to me, and I started asking a lot of questions, more so than I normally would, because I find it very interesting that there's this group of people and this is what they do. I can tell you that my client has been, since he was a young boy in Poland, doing this, racing pigeons. And he had no idea that, he'd be getting into a little bit of a problem after building the coop. And, this wasn't, as far as I can tell, this wasn't a neighbor, and he's talked to many of his neighbors complaining about any problems with the pigeon coop or the pigeons. As you'll see in some of the materials that I provided to you, pigeons don't make noise. They're very distinct type of animal. They make very, very, very little noise. They're in an enclosed coop most of the time, especially in winter. And if you look at the pictures, which have been marked as Exhibit A, you'll see a picture. The first picture, I think, is the exterior looking from where his house is. And this is just to give you a general sense of what you're looking at. And then the pictures thereafter almost go in conjunction. It's the floor leading up to some very colorful areas where the pigeons go in, I guess, to go to sleep and whatnot. And then the third is just sort of higher up. You can see the top of the first picture is at the bottom of the top of the second picture kind of matches up to the third picture. So you can see the entire inside of the coop. Just to give you an idea, and I think it's important because, again, we're not talking about a chicken coop. And I'm going to call it coop because that's my growing up. It's always been a coop, this type of thing. It's a loft. And I was corrected many times out in the hallway, and I told all the gentlemen back there, under the penalty of probably getting hurt later, to call it a loft.
But the hobbyist vernacular is loft.
The hobbyist vernacular is loft. So this is more, you're not talking about ducks, you're not talking about chickens, you're talking about pigeons who are basically raised like pets, but they're competitive pigeons. And if I could take you to, go ahead.
Are you familiar with the New York Times article on Sunday regarding this subject?
I did not. I was very, very busy this weekend. I apologize.
Direct your attention to the Metropolitan section, first page, carries on to another page, extensive article about the whole...
Was it favorable to my application?
I'm not going to comment on whether it was favorable or not. I do have a copy of it here.
Okay.
If you want to take a look at it, I'm happy to let you.
I may after the conclusion, but, and again, you've got to one of the points bringing up New York. The pigeons in New York are different. There's different types of pigeons, and these pigeons are wholly different. And I'd like you to I liken this after having many conversations with my client, and tonight having conversations with the gentleman in the back. This is more like a marathon runner. These pigeons, number one, there are somewhat, there are requirements for the fact that they have to get vaccinated, and they have to take medications, and the coops have to be a certain cleanliness. They take this very seriously. And the pigeons are affixed with a timing device. If you've ever run in a 5K, which is as far as I've ever gotten, you get a little timing device, a chip, that's put on either your bib or in your sneaker, and when you leave wherever the start is, you run across the start line, it starts the clock, and when you get to the finish line, you run over another indicator, and it takes the time. Everyone's coop in any of the organizations has the finish line built into their coop. So when the bird comes back, it crosses in, goes into its loft, and the timer stops, and then they report their time back to the officials. So when they take off, the clock starts, and when they get into their loft, they walk across a threshold at the door, and it stops the timer. And obviously, people live in different areas and different locations. There's a calculation, obviously, if you're 100 miles, then it's a different calculation than whether you're 50 miles, and the fastest pigeon ends up winning, or coming in second or third, or so on. So this is very competitive, it's very high-tech. There are 20 clubs under the main umbrella within the state of New Jersey. I can tell you that there are approximately 20 races. There's I believe they told me there are 2 seasons of 10 races each, one in the spring and I think one in the fall. Again, I'm telling you all this not only because I think it might interest you like it interested me, that there's a whole other world out there of this stuff, but I think setting it apart from what the violation was, which I think when any town in the state of New Jersey, and I went through a lot of ordinances in researching this, I think the main thrust of it was chickens, or maybe other types of egg-laying or meat-producing type of, this is not that. These are pets. These are trained pets.
So you're saying that the term poultry would not apply?
No, absolutely not. And I will tell you this, that listen, I'm an attorney, so it's my job to find a way to advocate for my client. But I did a lot of research on the word fowl, which is what's contained within your code, the word fowl. And I tried to find a distinction, and there was distinctions. I couldn't find any authority, but different various publications, whether it's state, federal, or local, differentiate on whether or not a pigeon is considered fowl, because fowl is usually egg-laying or meat-producing. So I can't sit up here and put in front of you some sort of an exhibit like I would at a trial to tell you, look, there's precedence here, but there are definitions out there from various organizations and various articles that I've read that don't consider pigeons fowl.
You have no judicial opinion saying that pigeons are not fowl?
Yeah, and I went as far as to, look into, the various state organizations that might be governing this, and I couldn't find a very specific distinction that I thought would be helpful or probative in my argument today before you. But I'm trying to make a distinction. Number one, that these aren't what I think the ordinance was directed to prohibit. And number two, this is, not that I want to liken it to it, but if you had a big dog with a doghouse out and back, and your dog was going to competitions, there would be a big doghouse. You'd probably have it a little bit bigger than normal. It wouldn't be the normal doghouse we see in TV or whatnot. You'd be pampering your pet, and that's what my client has been doing with his pigeons.
What would you say to a comparison, instead of to a dog, to a kennel of dogs?
To a kennel of
dog
dogs?
kennel with multiple dogs.
All right, so, and I asked that question today. Again, I would differentiate it because there's obviously, if you're going to have several dogs in a backyard, there's barking. There's a lot of noise. I think there's an odor. Even, there's things that separate it from that. I asked my client and all the gentlemen in the back, how many pigeons do you have today? To my client, he said there's about 10 today in his coop. When I made this application, I wrote 28, and I think I started discussing this with him 6-8 months ago, maybe even more. He's from 28 down to 10, and I said, what happens? Wires, predators, hawks, things happen to these, they fly long distances, sometimes hundreds of, so they go out of state to some extent sometimes, so they're going long distances. They don't all make it back. And then, to some extent, his favorite birds, the ones that he's grown accustomed to, he has named. So I don't know that I can add anything to this, other than I'm trying to give you a sense that I don't think the ordinance here applies to what my client has. And I think you'll find, if you ask any questions of him or his colleagues, that's the case throughout the state of New Jersey. There are other towns that permit this type of thing. I don't want to pretend to impose another town's decisions upon you, but it's not an uncommon thing as I did my research.
Do you have any towns in mind that you can?
I got to tell you, I don't. When I first started doing the research, I was trying to find something more statewide to use, but there were several towns that do reference the fact that certain variances have been allowed. I don't have them. I might be able to dig them up and provide them. It was very early in my research, but I did want to bring that.
I assume you're going to present testimony from your client or maybe other people as well.
Well, what I'd like to do, I think I've covered a lot. What I would like to do is bring the three gentlemen, my client and the two presidents of the two associations that I referenced up in the front. I don't know if there's any questions that any of the board members have with regard to this. I would like to question my client a little bit about his care, maintenance, and upkeep of it. Again, kind of circling back, I think the code official was in the area with regard to another complaint or another issue in the neighborhood and noticed the coop. This wasn't a neighbor complaining and saying, I don't like this. And again, I think my client has gone and spoken to several of his neighbors. Nobody's being bothered by this. There's a fence between his property and the next one. They don't make a lot of, like I said, don't make a lot of noise, and he takes meticulous care. So if you want to, we
All
can...
right, why don't you do this? Why don't you bring up all three witnesses, we'll swear them in together.
Good.
And then present them one by one. I think maybe your client might be the first one appropriate.
Yeah, he will be.
And then when that's done, and we get through board questions, and even public questions.
Yep.
Then I'd like you to specifically address the positive and negative criteria.
Sure.
And, whether this property is particularly suited for this particular hobby.
Understood.
So that we can deal with the D variance requirements.
Understood, I appreciate that. I'm going to ask Stanley Krawich and Wesley Wisniewski, as well as my client, Christoph, to come forward.
Can I ask a question, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
When should I be speaking after them in regards to the violation and how this was found as such, or when would you like me to speak about it?
I actually think that would be a good introduction to the testimony. If you could, since you're the one that initiated the violation notice, which then prompted the variance application, perhaps you can give us that background for the record before this testimony. Maybe you can slide over, Mr. Newcomb, and we can deal with the cord limitation.
So, my name is Kathy Newcomb, I'm the Township Zoning Officer. I'm the official here that found this. And that is correct, sir, is that we were out, myself and the Code Enforcement Officer, were out on July 14th of 2023. That's how old this is that we had a complaint which had to be removed. I had chickens on that street. Those homeowners did remove those chickens and roosters. With that said, as we were going down the end of Middlesex, I noticed the dog tied to the tree, which brought my attention to the coops and other things such as that. So with that said, is that when I was out there on July 14th, this isn't something that I just sent Mr. Naraki a violation notice just from the hip. I have in writing that I had contacted my planners and my attorney in regards to the pigeons. And I asked their opinion of whether or not that this felt, or that our ordinance, which clearly talks about fowl in the R2 zone on less than 1 acre. And the reply on July 18th was that Rutgers University includes pigeons as fowl, as does a legal definition that they had found online. So relying on my professionals, that's when I moved forward with the violation notice to them, to Mr. Naraki. With that said, is that in that zone that they're not permitted, since then, I have had 2 complaints from the neighbors in regards to the pigeons, okay? I knew that Mr. Naraki was hiring an attorney to, first you folks were going to do the appeal, and that was, again, this application is over a year old. That prolonged, and then obviously you've come to the use variance. With that stated is that as a zoning official, it is my job that if there's something in question, especially when I had to make the other people remove their fowl off their property, is then, and I've never either have dealt with pigeons, so this was a first for me as well. That's why I went to my attorney and to my planner, because that's what they're there for, to give me some guidance. So with that said, is that we rely on Rutgers University for their definitions and things such as that. So I guess one of the questions I have in regards to how long that Mr. Naraki has been there is that when he was sent the notice of violation, his mailing address at the time was 107 Helen Avenue in Lawrence, New Jersey. Is there any reason why that was kept if he was living at this house that long?
How long have you been living at, well, I guess we should swear him in. I'm going to ask him, Judge.
Well, I do
did
want-
not pull his deed for.
Yeah, I'm the chair, not a judge.
I apologize. I
But,
got report all day today.
That's okay. But we, if we're going to engage in any Q&A of this story, I want to have all 3 witnesses sworn in.
Very good. I appreciate it. You gentlemen, would you stand up?
Gentlemen, could you stand and raise your right hand, please? You swear or affirm the testimony you give tonight to be the truth, full truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes, sir.
All right, so there's a question pending to Mr. Naraki.
Mr. Naraki, how long have you lived at the residence? Since when?
You saying?
Yeah.
16 years.
No, how long have you lived at 17 Middlesex?
Oh, 17. It's like 3 years, I think so, 3 years.
Okay. Is there a
And-
reason you had another address in?
When you walk,
Yeah, in Lawrence, New Jersey.
yeah, I'm living before in the Lawrence. Yeah.
Because that's where the violation notice was sent, and it was returned back
Okay, yeah.
because of that.
Yeah, because my old address, when I'm living.
And I would agree with Mr. Naraki, because in speaking with him, he has a friend that helped him out when we first met, and she came with us, is that I had only thought that he had been there only about 2 years.
Okay.
So that's, just I want that on record.
No, I appreciate it.
So,
Well, council's represented 3.5 years. Are we adjusting that?
I could get the board a very specific, I did not pull the deed, but if after the meeting, after our portion of the meeting's over, I could try and pull his deed up off the website for the county, and I can give you a specific date.
Well, a specific date, I mean, surely perhaps Mr. Naraki knows what month and year he moved in.
You know what year you moved in? His wife's in the back, Judge. I'm sorry. Chairman, I'm going to get an answer for you.
I don't mind him consulting his wife to refresh his recollection on this, but so long as we can get a date down.
I think she's looking it up in her phone. 2022? 2022? Okay. 3 years. So it'd be 2.5 to 3 years, I guess, if it's 22.
All right, fine.
So with that said, is that I have to say that I have given this a long period of time before I didn't take this to court. And I understand, that again, initially it was an appeal. I don't know the reason why that was redacted and then moved for the use variance. Yet I just want the board to understand is that this was not something that I took lightly and just decided to put Mr. Nawaki into violation. And the reason is that foul, according to Rutgers and to my professionals, pigeons fall under foul. So at some point is that our ordinance reads that in the R2 zone, you are not allowed any foul. It has to be, if you do, it has to be on an acre of ground, and the housing has to be at least 50 feet away from the property line. Just like Rutgers.
The loft has to be, or a coop, however it's called.
However you folks want to deem it, okay? I'm deeming it as a coop. With that being said, is that there are people in the R2 zone that have more than an acre and do have fowl there, none of which are pigeons, they are chickens. They're not allowed to have roosters. So I just want the board to understand the history of this application and how long it has been outstanding. So I appreciate your time. Thank you.
And refresh everybody's memory as to the dimensions for, the maximum dimensions for the R2 zone, so we know what size of property we're talking about.
So it's 15,000 square feet for the R2 zone is the requirements for that zone. Yet when you read under 104, I believe it's 54, 54F, is that the only place that you can have, in the RR5 zone, which is mainly an agricultural zone, is that you can have roosters, you can have chickens, you can have everything. In the R2 zone, again, it must be at a minimum of an acre of ground, which obviously it is not an acre of ground here.
Right. Thank you.
You're welcome, thank you.
And just so the RR5 zone, it's 5 acre zone.
Correct.
Right. All right.
If
present
I-
your witnesses?
Yeah, before I do that, Paul and I have had a chance over the course of this last year or so. She's been very helpful. Again, I'm not, the primary thrust of my practice is not planning, so I appreciate that. I did not know about the complaints, and she's been very kind and patient with our going through the process. There were some weighing of whether or not to appeal the decision or go for a variance, and from a legal perspective, it made more sense because of, the appeal process and whatnot, so.
Well, that's really irrelevant for our consideration.
Understood. I wanted to bring up one thing, though, and mark it as an exhibit, because as I did my research for today, I did come across a Rutgers, a New Jersey Agricultural Experiment Station article published in 2020,
Which is an official state publication.
as far as I know,
Is it this one here?
it is.
Because that's the one that was sent from my planner,
Okay.
correct?
Since it's been referenced, I just wanted to bring it up.
Let's mark it.
Sure.
We have
good.
Exhibit
3, we're going to go.
C, Exhibit C, the Rutgers official state publication called what, sir?
It's called the New Jersey Agricultural Experiment Station Bulletin E353. Same one?
Yep.
Okay. And on the second to last page, just reading into the record and for the members of the board, there's a subsection called pigeons, and it says pigeons are typically confined to a fly loft, a screened exercise area for pigeons, which includes an interior roosting area where pigeons are sheltered from the weather. The loft may or may not allow pigeons to have contact with the ground. Pigeons, when properly maintained, are compatible with small residential lots. Lots as small as 1/4 acre are acceptable as a minimum for raising pigeons. It's recommended that the fly loft be at least 25 feet from a property line. That's the entire paragraph. I wanted to read that. Obviously, we're going to have to get into and address the fact that this piece of property is 1/5 of an acre. It's not even the 1/4 of an acre, but I wanted to sort of, Rutgers, in as much as the definition of foul or not, obviously, we're considering it a foul because we're here trying to get a variance and asking the board to vary from that definition and allow for it. But Rutgers, in the same article that was referenced, did say that small lots are compatible as long as the loft is cleaned and the pigeons are kept in a healthy manner.
They talked also about the distance from property line.
Correct. Which
That
is,
may be an issue you have to address.
it most certainly is. There would be no way, based upon the primary structure of the home as well as the garage, to probably comply in any way, shape, or form with any of the requirements for this type of a structure. Although, again, that's in keeping with, there's hurdles to get past here, and that's going to be one of them, obviously.
All right, let's hear the testimony then.
Sure. They weren't sworn in yet, they were?
No, they haven't been sworn in.
They were?
Yes, they were.
All right, I missed it too.
How quickly we forget. Okay, who's your first witness?
Do you mind if they sit, or you want them to stand up?
No, please have him stand at the podium.
Christoph, why don't you stand up first? Why don't you come over here so you can be heard? How many pigeons do you presently have in the coop?
Now,
Yeah,
10.
okay. And what is a routine with regard to cleaning the coop? How often do you clean the coop every month? You gotta talk up.
One time for the week, it's like 2 times for the week.
1 or 2 times per week?
One, whatever it is,
Try to,
I don't want them.
try to get closer to the mic, put it up there,
Well, it's not too many pigeons.
and try to speak into the
Not
mic.
needed, yes.
Let me just try to speak into the mic, and slowly. Just tell us what
Sorry, my English is not perfect.
Not a problem, as long as we,
All right.
All right. So obviously, what you just said, and I don't know if everybody heard, the number of pigeons presently there doesn't call for more than 1 or 2 times a week to be cleaning, correct? Cleaning the coop.
Yeah,
All right. When you have more pigeons, obviously you clean the coop more often?
yeah.
Okay. How often are there vaccinations that you have to give to the pigeons?
Yeah, the young one is 2 times, and for
When you
all
say young one, how old is the young one?
the young one is like 1 month.
Okay, and so how often do you have to give vaccinations for that?
For the paramyxo and salmonella.
Okay, and
This
that's,
is for the be healthy.
salmonella, but I didn't catch the other.
what was the other, salmonella you give them vaccination for, and what else?
PMV. This is it's like I forgot
The virus.
for the virus.
Something like bird flu, but,
No.
or different? Not really, but it is a contagious virus.
BMV is the vaccine.
All right.
And all of your pigeons, when you get them, are vaccinated
Yeah.
for these 2 things?
Yes.
Okay, and how often after those vaccinations do you bring the pigeons to a veterinarian for treatment or for well care? Do you have a regular schedule where you bring them once a year?
Yeah, this is the vaccinate.
No, just for any checkup.
Oh, this is the like schedule, like.
So how often do you bring them?
Yeah.
Once a year? Is that, I'm gonna ask the other gentleman. I have
Yeah,
time
so-
on it. Okay, so it would be normal for you, do you have a specific veterinarian that you use?
Yeah.
And where's that veterinarian? What town? Are they local to here?
No, just
Do you have a special veterinarian that you use to bring the pigeons when they get sick?
Dr. Kazimierczak, the Trenton.
Trenton?
Trenton, yeah.
Okay. And how often do you enter the pigeons into competitions? No, you have to answer. I'm gonna ask them.
Sir, we have to simplify the question. How often do you race the pigeons?
I don't understand what you mean.
In a year, you bring them to race, right?
Yes, yes.
How many races did they race in last year?
Oh, this is for young pigeons, is 10 races.
10 races?
Yeah.
Okay, so you went to 10 races last year
Yeah, for the young pigeons.
for young pigeons?
Yeah.
What about the older pigeons?
So the pigeons have it, the 10 too.
7 to 10, so you do about 17 to 20 races
Yeah,
last year?
yeah, like,
Okay. What I'd like to do is I'd like to bring members of the association up. I think it'd be a little bit more expedient to answer questions and answer my questions, unless the board has.
Well, what I want to do is I've got a couple of questions, and then I'm going to ask the board if they have questions, and then we can go to the next witness. Mr. Nowaki. Now you have 8 pigeons?
10.
10. How, what is the maximum number that you can fit in the loft?
It's like 25, 28.
And
No,
what
just
do
no.
you do if the pigeon population becomes bigger than the loft capacity? Do you understand my question?
Do you ever have more pigeons than 25 or 28 pigeons?
Yeah, sometimes, yes.
What do you do in that case?
I'm racing and lost, sometimes.
What happened, the loft can handle about 25 pigeons, you said?
Yeah.
So do you get more than 25 pigeons at any one time?
28, 25, something more.
Is that the most you've ever had?
Just now, like 28.
Okay.
That's
But have
it.
you ever had more than 28?
No, because,
Wouldn't take it?
no space.
All right, are you breaking now for your questioning,
I thought you
Counsel?
wanted to, no,
I'm going to ask the other members of the...
Yeah, I no, I was trying to help you and answer your question.
No, that's the only question I had right now. Members of the board, other board members, if you have questions on this issue, let's deal with it. We'll do it piece by piece. Questions, anybody?
I have one question on this photo.
Yeah.
Is that only one side is open on this? Like the fence side, is that solid? Or is it mesh as well? It looks solid.
Yeah, one side is open.
I want just one side.
Give more air,
Okay.
It sounds to me that you take the pigeons away from this property in a van or something and you race them. Are any pigeons taking flight from this property back and forth? I'm trying to understand the nature of what the complaints would be from any neighbors, whether it's odor or there are pigeons flying low over my swimming pool when they go there. No pigeons are flying out of the property on a daily basis?
Do you let pigeons go from the loft, let them go, or you never do that? Do they ever get out of the loft?
Yeah, this is the training,
How do you train
You
them?
train.
Where do you take them?
Open in the morning and afternoon and training, the fly training.
So your daily exercise, they get out, just like my
Yeah,
dog, I let them in the
yeah.
backyard, the
Right.
pigeons go out. Okay.
This is the season when a young one needed to be understanding there.
Okay, again, I don't have to have it now, but eventually I just want to understand what the nature of any complaint would be.
Yeah, understood.
Well,
Yeah. And again, I don't think if you're asking him, I don't think he has gotten wind of any complaints. I think, that was the
Sure.
first that we heard about
okay.
any complaints.
So is it, I'm just trying to, the frequency of the training, are they constantly in and out? Do they all go out at the same time and all come back?
Yeah.
Or are they just, you let them go, one comes back in a half hour, every half hour for 3 hours? Or?
The young pigeons need to be a little bit know that this is the home, and a little bit give it
So
the
they
time.
just
Give
go
it the
and-
time,
Yeah.
with the fly, but later is training. And training like 1 hour or more, and go inside, feeding, and that's it.
Okay.
This pigeon is not all the time is outside, In the winter time, like now, season is closed, the pigeons is closed, that's it, because too many hawks and falcons,
Okay.
and too many pigeons lost,
So let me see if I can hone in on this point. I'm envisioning chickens in a yard walking around, making the noise that they make, doing other things that they do. Are you saying that's not the way these pigeons are handled?
When you open up the door, they fly away and then they come back,
Yes.
correct? Do they stay in your yard at all? And when they come back, they go into the
When is the training, when is the young one a little bit needed, walking, because, this is the first time I need to know at the home. Of course, not open and go, but the later, when it's the training, is open, go fly, and come back fast, go inside, because this is the training about go inside fast.
Right.
Because
you gotta
come
get
back from
in
the
there.
race, need to go fast, because of the chip, and need to be fast the time,
And
I don't know if I'm good at explaining.
just part of the application that we submitted, I did submit a study completed with regard to the noise levels. I know that's part of.
Right, it's part of your submission, and we acknowledge receipt of that.
Okay.
We have at least one other board member who has a question.
all this sounds very, very interesting, but we need to resolve the problem of whether or not these are foul or not, and whether or not we're in violation of the ordinance. All this other information is nice to know, but it's not going to get us to where we need to go. All right? We need to find out whether or not they're foul or not, and whether or not we're in violation of the ordinance. Plain and simple.
Well, he's actually asking for relief from the ordinance by way of a variance. So, I mean, we're not trying the violation of the ordinance tonight.
No, I understand, I understand that, but I understand also Mr. Bradley's sort of, the crux of how he may decide this is whether this pigeons are considered foul or not. I would like an opportunity, obviously, to answer that question. Like I said, the research I did went both ways, and I didn't think it was anything authoritative enough in my findings. I found equally as much where they mentioned it that they didn't mention it. Obviously, I wouldn't mind, trying to do a little bit more research if that's going to be what the board needs to help decide this.
The article that you attach, articles that you attach to your presentation, takes the position that foul is an inappropriate word to refer to the pigeons, for the reasons I think you told us earlier. Correct. Okay. Is there any other testimony that you want to present about how the pigeons behave in the yard?
I guess this is sort of the gray area of this type of issue for this type of board. Like I said, I have two other gentlemen, I think, who could probably, and they also raise pigeons, so they could probably answer the question a little bit more succinctly as to their experience. Obviously, they're presidents of two big associations here in the state. I think they could be a little bit more succinct and help the board understand exactly how these birds are trained. Obviously, my perception, much like I would imagine many on the board, is you go to New York and you're in a park and there's a lot of pigeons and they're making a lot of noise. And I don't know I don't think that that's the case, and I would like to have one or both of these gentlemen explain to all of you what I think are your concerns. Obviously, you can ask questions of them as well.
All right. One other thing that might be addressed, and you referenced the location of the loft from the property line using 10 feet, I think, in your earlier presentation. Your presentation includes a survey and it shows a handwritten edition of where the loft is. Does the loft have to be there? Can it be somewhere else on the property? That question should perhaps be addressed.
I think I can most certainly ask my client right now, but I would imagine, as you can see from the survey, there's not a lot of, the only area that he could do is if he moved it towards the house and then moved to comply, obviously, with the setback requirements. It's a 0.18 acre property, it's a tiny property. So if you're asking, the board would only accept or approve this if he moved it to comply with the quote-unquote setback requirements, I can most certainly ask him that. But right now, it's effectually attached and hidden behind the garage, which makes a lot more sense, I think, from a disturbing of neighbors kind of perspective. It's not in plain view. There's a fence. He has nobody in front of him residential. There's the street, he's on a corner, so there's a street on one side, and then if you can see in the first picture there's a white fence. And the only thing you can see over the white fence is the roof from the neighbor's property. The neighbor can't see the coop, and that back part of the coop is solid. It's not fencing or chicken wire.
All right. Why don't you go on to your next witness?
Okay, Christoph, why don't you sit down? What I'd like, yeah, Stanley, why don't we do, this is Stanley Krowich. He's the president of the Central Jersey Combine, which essentially is the umbrella organization for, I would imagine, all of the pigeon racing associations in New Jersey. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to ask you the question that's already been asked of Christoph. there's a pigeon loft in someone's backyard. How does one go about training pigeons that are up to 1 year old and the older pigeons beyond that?
There's two different, first, you raise your babies, you have to raise the young ones. So when you raise the young ones, you start letting them out in May, June, and they have to get used to the area. So they fly around, you train them to go in the coop and all, and they used to fly in that area. Once that happens, once they're flying well and everything like that, then you put them in your car, and you take them 1 mile, 2 miles, 5 miles. You don't let them around the house that much anymore, and you start training them. And these are the young birds, like June, July, August. So we have 10 races that go from middle of August to the end of October. So these young birds are used for that. So once the birds are flying around the house and starting to go away, what we call routing, they'll go away, get simulated to the area, they come home, then we start training them. So once we start doing that, we don't really let them out by the house anymore. They go on the road, come back, go inside. This way we have control over them. And then plus later on in the fall, then the hawks come. So you can't let them out, so you go train them. The birds come home, they go right in. This way you save them, nothing happens to them. Old birds, we start letting them out. Then this is November, birds are locked down, and we start letting them go again in March. But that too, as soon as we start letting them out, the hawks come. So basically you take them, put them in your car, take them 1 mile, 2 miles, 5 miles, you train them that way. Birds come home, they go in, they stay inside. So they're not out all the time. Plus you have to have control over them. Plus you got for your neighbors too, you don't want birds hanging around. So they come home, they go in, fed, and they don't go out till the next time you take them training. So that's the way it is with the racing. And also with the fowl, I think there's a federal statute that has the chickens and all that, and the pigeons are separate. It's a federal thing. Because I think even there's a auction, livestock auction up in Hackettstown, where if you sell chickens, they have to come with a certificate from a vet that they're healthy and all. With the pigeons, they just bring them, sell them, and they don't need that certificate. And there's a federal statute, I'm almost positive. If I knew that was going to be asked, I probably could have got it from our national organization. They have a whole folder on all that stuff. So.
Well, that might be helpful for the conversation, if we had it.
And I know that article you were talking about in the paper, I saw that also. That's our organization. They took the birds in Pennsylvania and released them back in August, I guess middle of August.
Okay. Do anybody have questions of this witness?
I do. How do you get the pigeons? Do you buy them?
Well,
The young ones, how do you?
We buy them and we breed them. They have to be bred, or you buy young ones from a breeder. You buy the young ones and then you settle them to your loft. And then you start letting them out. But they have to be bred. You can't take an old pigeon, a homing pigeon, and bring it to your yard and let it go, but they'll go right back to where it came from, you know.
Since you mentioned the Times article, it did speak about and your presentation does too, about these pigeons being registered. Is that correct?
They all are registered.
Who are they registered with?
They're registered. When you buy the band from the club, we buy bands from the national organization. The band has the national organization's initials on it, the club initials, the year, and a number, serial number on it. So when that bird is caught or lost or somebody found, they contact me or the band secretary in the club, and we right away know who that bird belongs to. They're all registered.
Leg band?
Yeah, leg band. Yeah, the leg band's got to be put on 5-6 days. After 5-6 days, you're not getting it on the leg anymore. Yeah, so they're all registered to the person, you know, to the member of the organization.
Any other questions in this witness? Board?
When these young birds are trained and you let them out, are they landing somewhere in the neighborhood too, at some of the neighbors' houses?
Once or twice, but once they get, you know, But you let them out hungry, you know, you don't let them out with a full stomach, because they'll do like any other animal or kid or anything, you know, they don't care, but, yeah, you let them out hungry, and after a couple of times, you get them trained, you get them in, you get them to do what you want them to do, and that's it. And like I say, once they get what we call routing, where they go away from the area, come back, then we start training them. They don't even go out by the house anymore, you know.
Can you, this hasn't been asked, but probably should be, Counsel, can one of your witnesses address the noise issue, if there is a noise issue? Your presentation has the article in it, and that has some decibel information in it.
Correct.
But it might be good to have live
Is to
testimony.
do some cooing, but they're in the loft. They're inside, you don't really hear them. You know, you'll hear the cooing during the day, you know, something like that, but, you know, it's very minimal. You know, you get a car going by, it'll drown it right out.
Okay. Another question over here.
So is it my understanding that once they are acclimated to the area and they are used to going out and training, is that your testimony that you're taking them
Taking them away.
off-site and then bringing them, or they come back
And then they come back
by flying?
by flying. Yeah, you take them, the way I start a mile, 5 miles, then as they come home, they go right inside. Because it's, when you let them out around the loft, they'll hang for a little bit. Unless you had them really trained, you get them right inside. I let mine walk around, you know, I have a bigger yard and all, but, yeah, once they start flying around and we start training them, they don't go out around the house.
And you use vehicles to take them out?
Yeah, put them back in my truck. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
thank you.
And there's other training trucks or, you know, take them out also, you know, but sometimes, you know, if you take them out 30, 40 miles, then they come home, they go inside. They don't go back outside.
I have a question for Mr. Naraki, is that, are all the pigeons that you have, are they bought, or do you breed them here?
I'm buying a couple and I'm with a couple.
Okay.
I'm buying all one with a couple.
Yeah, you breed, either buy the breeders, according to how long you're in the game. Like I'm in the game all my life, so I have my old breeders, I got birds there 10, 15 years old, and then you have other birds, you'll go buy a bird here, buy it online, or buy it from another club member, breed out of it, so just to keep on improving your stock, basically.
This is a question, just pure curiosity. What's a bird cost?
The most expensive one sold for over $2 million.
Oh, Jesus.
Secretariat of Pigeons. How about the run-of-the-mill bird for guys like you?
You could buy them, you want to take a chance and waste your time, you could buy them 10, 12 bucks, or you go to an auction, or buy them online for a couple $100. A couple $100, a couple $1,000, but the ones in Europe are selling for over $1 million.
What is the bird, like the one that won the prize that you have in your, what is that, what would the market value of that bird be after the prize?
A club race winner or a combine winner?
I think it was a club race winner.
Club race winner, yeah, maybe $100, $150. There's got to be a repeater.
We got that in there.
Yeah.
Okay.
As a combine winner, you have to have $500 for that.
We have another question from the board.
Would you like me to ask Kathy a question?
Yes, you may.
Just so I know you don't have a crystal ball, but like if this gets approved, do you see any blowback from the other neighbors that we already sent the in-house out?
That's not my
Not sure
opinion to
Kathy
say.
can answer that question. I mean, she's not going to give opinions,
Yeah.
which is what you're asking.
Well, but you just had neighbors in that same area.
That's not my opinion to say, is that whether the board approves or doesn't approve an application, is that I only enforce what is approved according to that resolution. Anything beyond that comes that if there's complaints, let's just say, for example, then that becomes a whole new application, if you want to, per se, or a whole new complaint, because the applicant was already approved for it. What my job is to do is to keep an eye on that. If he was approved, let's say, for 10, I have the right to certainly ask him once or twice a year, is that, okay, how many do you have at this point? Do you have 50, 100, do you have 10? Because he has to keep up with the resolution. But if there's noise and other complaints, that starts a whole new timeline of issues with it, and that, it applies to this, but it doesn't. It's a new application per se.
Kathy can only give us
I understand.
facts,
Yeah.
Right.
and that's all. She cannot be asked her opinions, or even worse, to predict the future.
Yeah. So am I wrong to say it was a fact that you were on the same street?
Correct. In fact, in the email, it explains that I had been on that street because I had to ask one of the other homeowners who there was a complaint on their chickens and roosters to remove them. And that's exactly what I was doing. I was on that street making sure that they were removed at that time. And as initially explained, when we were going down Middlesex to make a right on, I forget what street that is, by the railroad track, Mr. Naraki, his dog was outside, tied to the, to the tree, and it was a fairly warm day. He did have a pool out there for him. So and in my pictures, you can see it straight from the street. Before he got a permit for a solid fence, you can see the coops, you can see the pigeons. So that's how it arrived. That's why, again, everything is in writing of how I handled this situation. I just didn't take it and go, hey, you're in trouble, so.
So the other people could come back and apply for a variance? That you already-
Anybody can apply for a variance. Everything is based on each application. Just because one person gets something doesn't mean the other person does. But those people chose to remove the chickens.
The granting of a variance doesn't provide a precedent for the next guy down the road to ask for the same variance. Each variance requests, and council can echo my comment, each variance request stands on its own merits, or rises or falls on its own merits.
Can I ask for clarification? Are you asking, I mean, I just quickly Googled like 4 different sites, including Law Insider. Every one of them says a pigeon is a fowl. So, for the sake of argument here, Kathy's point that, I think you're trying to tell us that pigeons are not fowl. Are you asking us to redefine fowl, or are you asking for a variance that this kind of fowl is acceptable?
Well, all right, so, no, I'm not, the variance that I'm requesting, and part of my argument, is that there is a question as to whether a pigeon is fowl. I could probably and have found different various articles, nothing that I felt comfortable bringing to this board, saying that pigeons, not defining pigeons within the definition of fowl, and a couple of articles.
And you have said that you've not found any judicial ruling that preempts fowl.
I was looking for Department of Agriculture or a Rutgers something where you guys would look at it and say, okay, that's an authoritative something that we can maybe hang our hat on or would be useful. But the nature of this variance, like any other variances, we're asking the board to vary from the existence of the word fowl. If you're going to define as a pigeon or not, we would like to get around that and still be able to, because as I've explained at the beginning, I think we're far distinguishing this from chickens or ducks or what, common knowledge would be a fowl. If you asked me what a fowl was, I don't know that I would have included a pigeon if you asked me to recite it. But if you gave me a list of 1 million birds, maybe half people would say, yeah, pigeon, it's on the list, that sounds like fowl to me, it's a bird. So, no, I'm asking for you guys to allow, even if you do see a pigeon as fowl, we're asking to vary from that.
Counsel, I think earlier, if I'm not wrong, and I don't mean to parse words, but you accepted for the purposes of this application that the pigeons would be designated fowl and you're asking for the exception, in effect, by way of the variance from that for this man's pigeons.
Yeah, I could not, again, we had a discussion a long time ago when this first cropped up, and the Rutgers opinion and the opinion of the professionals here in town were that it was foul.
Right.
I couldn't, like I said, I couldn't.
And you're not asking this board to redefine pigeons.
No, I couldn't get there. You know, I go into a court of law, if I don't have evidence, or if I don't know what the witness is going to say, I don't go there. So I couldn't take it there. I couldn't find what I needed to find after looking. So I'm looking to, you know, based upon the circumstances that we proffered here today, we're asking you to vary from the ordinance and allow us to maintain the loft on his property.
Okay, if any member of the board isn't clear on that.
Okay.
I don't know, I don't want to say I'm admitting that, I just couldn't find anything to refute what you have already heard from the zoning officer.
I understand.
Okay.
Next witness?
I don't know if I can add anything, but I guess it was...
It's your call.
No, yeah, if anybody had any questions, I wanted to make sure I had two sort of different, you know, people within the world of pigeons that could answer any questions. I don't have anything.
Well, I don't think there's any more questions, unless I'm wrong, on the testimony so far. So if you want to present any additional testimony, otherwise, you can move to addressing the legal standards.
Okay. Again, there's really two issues here. I have to get past the first hurdle. And I don't have any additional witnesses, but the first hurdle is what we were just talking about. No foul on the property, you know, of this size in particular, but no foul. And if you're going to allow the foul in the alternative, then there is obviously a requirement within the very same ordinance that requires 50 feet from any property line. As I looked at the survey, and I didn't do I wasn't out there with a tape measure, he would literally have to put this coop possibly against the house to get it far enough away from the back property line, and there's no other place to put it, if you look at the survey on the property, to stay away from what I believe to be 50 feet. And I'm eyeballing the survey. The house width is 24 feet, and I sort of use that as a benchmark on this survey. But as you can see from the photos and from the survey, this loft was constructed to be as hidden as possible. There's a fence behind it to border it from the other property. It's up against the garage, which was an existing structure. It is not it's not a large coop at all. You can see from the pictures of the interior as well as from the survey. It seems to make sense to me that if you're going to allow the first part of the burden that we have to meet to pass, and you'll allow for that variance, that you should allow the coop to stay where it is, because it seems to make sense in the scheme of things. It's hidden, it's small, and in that context, it makes sense. I don't know if you were to say to us today, we can get past the foul part of it, and we can get past letting you do this, but you'd have to move it so it's 50 feet away, whether that would be feasible. I haven't asked that question of my client right now, but again, as I look at that survey on this size of property, it wouldn't seem overly feasible to have a coop where we would need to put it to get it 50 feet away.
All right. You have a D-variance request. Can you address the special reasons for this, the positive criteria, the negative criteria?
Sure, and I think this is partially technicality, but, you know, because you've heard more testimony tonight than I was anticipating getting through, and I appreciate the board's interest, just like I did in some of this. But when you look at this, the special reasons that I found to exist to permit the coop, and again, this is set forth in the narrative that I have here. This property is small, so, you know, we can't get around the negatives that I was sort of faced with when I took this on to represent Mr. Nowacki. But in the scheme of things, I think unless you're sort of there in the area and peering around to see, you wouldn't know that this existed. I think in this case, these are pets. You know, plain and simple, these are pets. I understand, you know, I'm not going to beat the foul definition to death, but these are pets. He named some of them his favorites that have done well for him or that have been around the longest. A lot of them, as you can see, don't last. He had 28 at one point, we're down to 10. That's the nature of living in New Jersey and having hawks and eagles and whatever else there are as predators, as well as, cars and whatever else gets in the way.
But fairly, you could expect the population to rise as...
Yes, I would imagine if you're as avid as he is about this, and again, he's done this his entire life, bringing his interest over from Poland. You're not gonna, I don't think you're gonna leave it at 10. He said he breeds them to some extent. He purchased others, and it's always good to find, the next secretariat, in your thing. But these are animal athletes, and they're his passion. He hasn't lived in town long enough, and as you can see, a little bit of a language barrier, and the assimilation's maybe not there, so maybe he didn't think through it. Maybe I should ask the town if I can do this. I have a small property, I want to bring pigeons, but we're here now, and I think that adds to the special reasons. Again, I understand the board's concerns. You had to have someone remove chickens from the neighborhood. Maybe people see, I don't know what the complaints were that were referenced. There were 2 complaints referenced, but I can imagine, it could be any number of things. I think he can be, there's nothing, and again, I'll address the negative criteria. These birds aren't noisy, they're not smelly, and they serve his purposes as a sport and as a hobby. I think I've covered through the various testimony and my espousing of my client's position, the positive and negative criteria. I don't think there's a negative detriment to the public good. I think, like I said, there could be any number of reasons. I don't know what the complaints have been on this, but I'm not sure that the initial finding of the pigeon coop was a result of someone saying he's got some sort of coop in his backyard. I'd like to, I'm complaining about it. I think that seems to have come after. And I'll rest with that unless the board has other questions.
No, if that's your argument, then...
I do have 2 complaints.
No, you said you had 2 complaints that came, I think, afterwards?
Yeah, we'll get to that respectfully. So your presentation on the negative criteria and special reasons is completed.
Let me just look at my notes, if you would.
Then we're going to move on to public comment.
It's part of the, I put it as part of the record, so I'll leave it as...
All right, well, if there's something else that comes to mind after your public comment, I'll permit you to add that. All right, I should ask the board, on this argument that was just made by counsel, any questions of members of the board on what's been said?
Yes, I have a question about the location of the loft in relationship to the property to the east. How far is the dwelling, the livable area? I guess that would be considered the rear of the back of his property, the eastern side?
The photographs are Exhibit A or B?
You look at the survey, correct?
I'm looking at Exhibit A.
And the first photo in Exhibit A is the
I'm sorry.
Just the survey. Oh, no, I'm not looking at the photo. I'm looking at
The application itself.
the application, Exhibit A.
My Exhibit A, which is the survey contained in there with the hand drawing.
Right, but it doesn't show where the property, anything about the property to the east and, I can see the property to the north on the pictures, but I'm curious where's the dwelling behind his...
Oh, where's the dwelling to the east is what
Right.
you're asking? Yeah, I'll be honest with you, I'm gonna have to ask my client about that. I did not, Where's the house? His house is where?
Oh, here.
There's no house here?
No.
And where?
Further down on Atlantic.
The property in the front's Atlantic Avenue, which is block 37, lot 12. Right behind the garage.
Mm-hmm.
To the east, there is nothing there, that is vacant. And where would you say the house is here? And my client's pointing pretty much almost off of the survey in the block to the north of that block we just spoke about. The house is far away, northeast as you can get.
Okay, that would be Lot 3.
That would be Lot 13. No, Lot 13, Block 37, Lot 13,
Oh, it's this-
was what I thought you were asking me. Can I come over and show you what I...
Sure.
No, he's talking about this one.
Oh, that's the one to the east, yes. I thought we were also talking, the neighbor on Middlesex, would that be 15 Middlesex? That would be to the north. So I'm satisfied, the property to the east is vacant.
Correct.
Then there's Atlantic Avenue,
Right.
and then there's Middlesex Avenue. So really, the only dwelling is to the north. Residential dwelling would be really to the north.
It's a vacant lot.
How far is,
Just have these guys.
He's pretty much right where Block 37, Lot 3 is.
got it, so maybe another 25 feet
Yes.
from the actual dwelling.
That's the house.
Okay, Paula, done, or? Yep.
I'm sorry.
Take your time, I didn't mean to rush you.
It looks like, oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, any other board members, and then I'm going to turn it over to public comment, and you'll have another round when we
Right here.
finish that.
The only neighbors he's got.
All right, we're going to have a public comment
Okay.
on this for the members of the public, so if you do want to comment, raise your hand, I'll pick you out one at a time. You come up to the microphone, you'll be sworn in, you give your name, address, and we'll hear from you. So, who wants to make public comment? I see two hands, two ladies. All right, first lady in blonde hair, come on up.
Go ahead, your name, please.
Aracelis Torres,
What's the first name?
Aracelis, Aracelis. Torres,
Can you swear or affirm the testimony you give tonight to be the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth?
yes. Good evening. I live at 13 Middlesex, which is right next door
To the north.
to the north, yes. And now that I guess we've established that it's full, I've never called and complained because I tried to be cordial with my neighbor. However, it did get a little extreme, I guess. So here we are. And I guess I just want to say the reasons why I would be opposed to him keeping the pigeons there. Because it does directly affect my property since I'm directly next to him. When he first moved in, he did build a coop. It was much larger than the one he has now. And then the coop was made shorter to bring in a big construction trailer that was supposed to board the pigeons sometime in between. Somewhere throughout that time, then he was told, Mr. Milwaukee was told that I filed a complaint, so then I was kind of bullied in my own property. So I am going to tell you, Mr. Milwaukee, and he knows some of these instances because I mentioned it to him when we were cordial and speaking. So there were about, when he first moved in, there were about 12 to 18 pigeons, and then he did build a larger coop. They do fly around the property, and then they do come, they line up, and they go in. They're very fascinating, by the way. I don't think I have a problem with pigeons at all, except for when it's in my, the area, the small area that we reside in, and how it affects me directly. They have picked on my gutters, they have been on my roof, and there's droppings on my, I'm sorry, I'm nervous, in my back deck, my concrete, the side of my side entrance, my driveway, the concrete around my pool. I found feathers in my pool. I found a pigeon in my pool. It was alive. One time he let them out, and he is aware that one just flew out and slammed into my home and died, and there was blood everywhere. And he's not to mention the terrible odor that was coming from the coop, because I have an in-ground pool, that's where I lay out, and that's where we go swimming, and his backyard is, the coop is directly, the wind would hit directly to my backyard. And with that being said, for me not to be someone who came to complain and try to be cordial with them, I think I've encountered a lot of inconvenience to be further inconvenienced with anything else. So that's all I have to say, because I guess after the trailer came in and the township was called on that as well, then things began to, I guess, 5 inches of my driveway. When he got the survey, he realized 5 inches of my driveway was his, something I didn't know. There was construction on my driveway. He wouldn't even come and talk to me about it because he assumed that it was I, from what his wife said, that it was I that called the township. And like she mentioned, if there wasn't an ordinance, and I've always mentioned to him, you think you can train them not to come to my roof because there's droppings on my deck, there's droppings on my canopy, and he said they were new, they were young ones, and he was still training them. But up until just last month, there's still some that hang on my roof. So, I don't know about you saying that they're clean animals, or not, but I clean a lot of droppings on my deck, because I'm there all summer. That's my fortress, my backyard and my pool. So, and for me to be further bullied, I don't think it's pretty cool at all, because I endured all this inconvenience, and I don't think he cared. So here we are.
Thank you, Mrs. Torres. Would you just stay there for a second? Because I'm going to ask the board members if anybody has a question of you. Anyone?
I have a question. Was there a higher rate of negative effect on your property when the trailer was there? Has there been any difference then to now when there's only 10 there now?
I can't tell you how many there are there now. I know when he first moved in, there weren't that many, and there was a larger coop, and then there were many there. But the trailer really, and I asked him about it. I didn't call the township. I asked him, well, what's the plan with this trailer? Is it short term? Because it was lined up right on my fence. It's a very small property, so it's right on my fence, where if it, God forbid, it would tip over anything because it had a trailing rack on it, it would land, or if it would catch on fire, because all you could smell was the lacquer of the smell of I guess it was painted and stuff, and it wasn't safe to have there at all, not to mention it was an eyesore. It wasn't a very attractive trailer either. And then I said, you could oversee my property. You could see me laying in the backyard. You could see, I couldn't see the street, the Atlantic Avenue. I couldn't see if the bus was coming or anything like that. It just obstructed the view completely. And it was very inconsiderate. I felt it was very inconsiderate. And I felt like I've endured so many things for the first 2 years for this to keep happening. So if it's approved by the board, I can't do or say anything about it. But I am here to speak on it if I can.
So you did or didn't notice any difference in terms of the number of pigeons that were there in terms of?
Well, I've seen them recently. No, I haven't. I know they fly around, and they get let out and they fly around, and they fly and breed. I haven't. I don't know if they're being let out less when I'm at work at this point or what, but I haven't really seen. Up until the beginning of September is the beginning of October was the last time I saw them on my roof. And then, recently their white, feathers are white, you can tell they're not just from any other birds, in my backyard. So I think he ought to know that it does affect me, and I have endured. So.
Any other questions from the board?
Is it in the summer, or is it what months?
You mostly do see them around the spring and summer, is what you're asking, because I'm out there, my pool, and, my deck and stuff, so that's when I see them more. But the smell, it breezes right on you. It breezes right on you right as soon as you stand right to get in your pool or right in your backyard. So, I even asked him to come in one time in my backyard, and I just wanted him to see if he could smell it, just have small talk and see if he could actually smell it. But nothing was mentioned, so I guess he didn't smell it. But I do. I really do.
Other questions? If not, I'm going to ask Mrs. Torres to thank her and have a seat.
Thank you.
All right, there was another lady had raised her hand. Thank you. Would you come forward, please? Follow the same procedure.
Hi, my name is Lisa Drone.
You swear or affirm the testimony you give will be the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth.
Yes,
Is it Mrs. Drum?
it's Miss Drone, Lisa Drone.
Spell that last name?
D-R-O-N-E, like a
Thank
drone
you.
applies, yeah. I live at 18 Middlesex Avenue. I've been there for 18 years. I don't have a problem with pigeons. I do appreciate what's being done, but pigeons are foul, okay? They're just a species of bird. They're kind of like a dove, but they're just a larger version. They do race them. They do different things with them, and that's fantastic. That's not my concern. My concern is that, I have horses, I understand, I have goats, and our properties are very small, so I have to board my horses and my goats because I can't bring them to Middlesex because it's not appropriate. Our lots are very small. We're very close to one another. If when my neighbor's dog, if it goes to the bathroom, you can smell it in the summertime. It's all of us. They got dogs. So there's droppings, whether it's a loft or a coop, it doesn't matter. I have animals, I know. I got lots of goats. They bring in vermin, they bring in insects, and that's part of my concern with it, is if you allow one person for the variance to do it, is another neighbor going to want to do it. And the property already has some things against it as it is. We got the liquor store, we have people walking through, they're throwing bottles in the yards all the time, you know what I mean? We got the other trucks and everything, we got a lot of stuff that's kind of against the property, so I don't want to bring in other things if they're going to bring in, mice, rats. And even though you do vaccinate them, that's great in health issues, but these mice and rats that you could be getting could be causing other health issues, and that's a concern of mine. And other people bringing in more, farm animals. It's not zoned for agriculture or, as far as I know, farm assess. It's not farm assess, is it? I mean, that's my concern about it. It's too small.
It's clearly not farm assessed.
Right, exactly. And that's why my horses and my goats are not at this property, because I don't think my neighbors would appreciate it. It's not that I don't appreciate what he's doing, I absolutely do, and I can appreciate the passion for it and the sport of it, absolutely, that's not my issue. I just want to make sure that, how many numbers of birds are going to be on the property? Is there a way that he could have them in his garage, or just something where it's not, so not everybody's happy. Not have them, it's not that, it's like I don't want anybody not to have them, it's just, I'm concerned about health issues, and the tight space that we have.
You finished?
Yes.
Just stay there for a second if we have any questions from board members.
I do. Have you experienced it? I mean, he's been there for a couple years. Have you experienced, and they have been there, experienced any mice or vermin?
I've had
or
mice, yes.
an increased
I'm not
rate?
saying exactly it's him, I'm not saying that, I'm not saying he's not taking care of them, but I don't know, I just don't want an increase, and I'm concerned not so much about him. If other neighbors are going to start, we had somebody with chickens, just so you know, I didn't make any phone calls, I had no complaints, I didn't call anybody, but it's just something, and I also didn't get a letter in the mail. I'm directly across the street, and that was another thing, I called the postal service, and they said, well, you weren't there to sign it. Well, I'm a nurse, I work in the hospital, I have different hours than most people, and I didn't even get a notice in the mail or a slip postcard saying I had something to sign, and I wouldn't have known this meeting was going on tonight. So I had to, so that was another thing. I'm not sure why I didn't get a letter. It may have went out, but nobody left me a card.
Okay.
That would be the postal service.
Any other questions?
No.
All right, thank you. Please, you can return your seat. One last call for public comment. Seeing none. We have public,
There's one person online. I don't know if they want to unmute.
all right, if they want to unmute, otherwise we'll close public comment. Not unmuting?
Nope.
Okay, public comment is now closed. Yes.
Just to reiterate that Mr. Naraki did bring a trailer onto the property. There was a complaint. Mr. Naraki was notified in a violation as well. He has since removed that, though, within a few weeks after the notice went to him, just to let you know.
Yeah, I think the trailer is probably irrelevant for purposes of this, but that's nice background information to have.
Well, I just want to let you know it was gone. It was a construction trailer, so he did remove it.
All right. Any other comments or questions by board members?
Yeah, I'd like to just say that the attorney, you kind of made a, stance on saying that it's pets. we all have pets.
Yeah.
You know, but I just want to let you know, it's kind of, after thinking about it a little bit, it makes it a little difficult to say that none of us have pets, that you just, like, you know what I mean, out to the.
No, and I understand. I think I was trying to make it a distinction between people who have chickens, and if you read the ordinance, it says chickens or other fowl. So I think the ordinance sort of directs itself towards chickens, and I wanted to make the distinction that he looks at this, even if I couldn't find the definition of fowl being anything else, he looks at this as though these are his pets. And I wasn't trying to say that it makes sense that, you know, it's the only other animal, like, you know, cats sometimes, you know, you have outdoor cats that come back every night, but that's a different story. I don't think they make as big of a fuss or whatever. They probably take care of some of the mice and whatnot. I wasn't trying to say that they're similar. I'm saying from his perspective, this is a pet.
All right. All right, I want to move this toward conclusion, because we've been on this a long time. Can our council frame for us, for the board, so they all understand, the nature of the relief requested and the burden on the applicant to deal with the statutory requirements, particularly the suitability of this property and the positive and negative criteria that need to be satisfied in order to grant the relief that is sought?
The applicant is asking for a use that is not an approved use in the ordinance, so he wants a use variance. That would take 5 yes votes in order to pass. The burden of proof is always on the applicant in these type of applications. He has to prove that there are special reasons why you should grant this variance. And by special reasons, they mean some benefit under the municipal land use law to the community and to the use that's proposed. He also has to prove that the benefits outweigh the negative impact. The negative impact meaning how does it have an adverse impact on the neighbors or the community in general, and does it offend the purposes of the zone plan for this particular zone, which is the R2 zone. So the use variance, if the use variance is granted, then you have to deal with the setback, whether or not you're going to grant a variance on the setback. If the use variance is not granted, then the setback becomes a moot point.
All right, let me add hypotheticals that if anyone was inclined to grant the variance, could there be conditions placed on the variance as to the number of pigeons maintained at any one time, an upper limit, if you will, and a condition that I'll call a sunset provision that would prevent the variance from, normally a variance would roll over to the next owner, but a sunset condition on it could prevent that, so it's limited to his use, not the next person who owns the property.
As a general rule, variances run with the land and they're not specific to a certain owner. But there are circumstances under which it would be appropriate to put a time limit on a variance. And I think this is most likely one of those types of situations where you can put a time limit on it or make it specific to the current ownership. You certainly can put a condition on the number of birds that will be allowed at any one time.
So, does the board understand the criteria that we have to look at to vote on this? And if you don't, please don't be bashful to ask a question and we can address that question. Anybody have a question?
Could we conditionally approve this for a specific time frame? Yes. So that it would be done annually, or?
Well, I don't know they want to do it that year annually comes up.
I was just using annually as an example, but 3 years, 5 years?
There are, I've seen time limits that are enforceable in the 3 to 5 year range.
Mhm.
All right, there being no other questions from the Board of Council, I'd ask for a motion one way or the other on this application.
I would suggest that you make a motion to approve and see if it gets 5 votes.
Fine. Will someone make that motion?
So moved.
Okay,
I'll second it.
all right, the motion has been made, and there's a second. Any questions of the board on the motion? It's made before I call for a vote.
If it's a yes, then we're approving.
A yes vote to the
You
motion.
want to put conditions on that motion, I
Right.
assume.
Yes.
That's why I asked
No
for,
birds and time limit.
that's why I asked for questions on the motion, because does your motion include any conditions? As we just addressed the issue of potential conditions in a hypothetical fashion. Do you-
I would make a motion that we limit the maximum number of birds, pigeons, fowl, whatever.
I'm confused here. Shouldn't we be first deciding, are we willing to grant the use? And if we get enough yes votes, then are there conditions? You know, because otherwise we're gonna be throwing in a bunch of conditions, and then what are we voting on? It's gonna be confusing to vote.
I was just making a motion
Yeah.
based on a recommendation of the
Yeah.
attorney.
The conditions should be included in the motion.
You know,
But the threshold question on the motion is, do you find that the applicant has met his burden of proof on the various criteria that council's spoken about? And if the answer to that is yes, then you can move to the conditions. If the answer to that is no, then the conditions become moot.
right.
So the motion is now amended. Gus, you made the original motion, you're amending it?
Yes, to limit the number of homing pigeons to no more than 25,
Conditions now.
and that this approval is only valid for a period of 3 years.
Anybody, any other comment of the board on the motion before I ask for a vote? All right. Here,
If I have a recommendation to adjust a limit, we're just going to vote on Gus's amendment or his conditions?
yeah, or you can ask Gus if proposed to him a change in the limit, if that's the issue. And if he accepts it, then the motion is altered and can be then voted on.
Yes, I just want to get the motion out on the floor.
Right.
So the motion's been amended once already, you want to amend it a second time, if Gus is the author of the amendment, he can agree to that.
My suggestion is to have it run with the ownership.
As opposed to a 3-year cap.
As opposed to a 3-year cap.
I would agree with that, but our attorney mentioned that this goes with the land, not with the owner.
Well, this would go with the owner.
Make that condition.
Yeah.
With this type of variance, you can make that a condition.
Oh, okay, then I certainly agree with that.
Okay, so as I understand it, I want to restate the motion for everybody. The motion proposes to grant the variance, that is, allow the birds on the property, and condition that by a number, a cap of 28, and
25.
25, thank you, and further condition that to sunset or end when the property changes hands, is sold to a subsequent buyer. So that's the motion in total. All right? Can we have a roll call on that?
Can I just ask our attorney something?
Sure.
Under Gus's conditions and everything, if the board decides on that, if the neighbors to this property continue to experience, their quality of life diminishes, what avenue do they have to come back to the board?
They would only have an avenue if he violates the terms of the approval. Like the other 26 days or something like that, they would have a right to file a complaint with traffic.
So if there is an impact of the birds leaving the property and creating the quality of life against the other neighbors, they're not going to live with that.
You're granting him approval.
Yeah.
He's got the approval.
Right. And that's why I was trying to establish if there was a difference in the effects of the neighbors based on the number of pigeons that were there. Testimony is there's 10 pigeons now, but at one point there were up to 28. And I was trying to establish if there was a difference in an effect in the quality of life based on those real scenarios, and I don't know that that really was established. I'm not satisfied with an establishment of that. I don't feel that that was established.
That's why when you said 3 years, 3 to 5 years is kind of what we should do. I was kind of hoping maybe we can get under that window, at least to the courtesy of the neighbors.
Well, let me stop you. This is not what we should do. This is a motion based upon the evidence. It is the applicant's burden to show that he has met the criteria of the statute that we've gone over, and I kept asking counsel to give us what his position is, and he's given us his position. And our attorney has told you the criteria. It's time to vote. The conditions are also attached, which you can consider, but your threshold question is, have they met their burden to establish their right to a variance? If you say no to that, you don't get to the conditions.
Okay, I get you. Okay.
So, roll call.
Mr. Bradley?
No.
Mrs. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Chakotchi?
No.
Mrs. Baggio?
No.
Mr. Murphy?
No.
Ms. Costco?
No.
Mr. McKay?
No. All right, motion fails. Counsel, nice presentation, but you'll have to live with the result.
Appreciate the board's effort.
Absolutely right.
To me, it's game over.
All right,
That's it.
we have other things. Paula, do we have a letter from Verizon that we have to look at on the adjournment?
You have an email that I put in front of everyone.
From Benjamin?
Yes.
From Cooper Levinson firm?
That is correct. At the very top, it's talking about an adjournment to January 8th. But if you turn the paper over, that was the original request to be heard at the November 7th meeting for us to carry it, so they don't have to re-advertise. However, because of our agenda being not November 7th, I'm sorry, to the December meeting, to be adjourned for November 7th. I spoke to him, telling him that we have a very large backlog that is scheduled for December already, and asked him if he was willing to go to the January 8th meeting, and he was. He said that probably would be better for him anyway, due to the fact that there is a long list of issues that they need to address from the professionals' letters.
Okay. Could you please file his letter request for the adjournment? Bob, do we need to vote on that? Can we just
Yes, so he doesn't have to re-advertise.
So he doesn't have to
January
re-advertise?
8th.
You need a motion to continue to the January date.
All right. May I have that motion?
Can we wait 1 second for Leela and
Oh, I'm sorry.
Karen?
Yeah.
Yeah, we had that discussion.
I forgot all about it. Thank you. All right, while we're waiting for them, maybe we can deal with the minutes of the October 2nd meeting. Can I have a motion with regard to those minutes? Accepting the minutes?
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes from October 2nd's meeting.
Okay, ladies, you have arrived just in time to
Okay.
join the motion to accept the minutes from last meeting.
Now, we didn't get that far yet, we need a second.
And then we will jump back to the other matter.
Okay.
So the motion is to accept the minutes of the October meeting, October 2nd meeting.
Yeah, we need the second.
Can I second?
Yes.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes. Returning to Verizon, we need a motion to accept the request of Verizon and grant an adjournment to the January 5th meeting.
8th.
January 8th meeting, thank you, I can't see it, because Verizon was not prepared to go forward last time it was issued, last time it was noticed.
Yeah, and they want to be heard at the January 8th meeting at 6:30 PM without further notice.
Okay. All right, so we'll get the motion first, and then we'll make the public announcement.
Yes.
So can I have a motion to grant the adjournment?
To grant the extension.
Thank you. Second. The second?
Gus seconded.
Yep, Gus seconded. Roll call?
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Mr. Bradley?
Yes.
Mrs. Twardy?
Yes.
Mrs. Kelly?
Yes.
Mayor Gilmore?
Yes.
Mr. Tricoci?
Yes.
Mrs. Baggio?
Yes.
Ms. Cosco?
Yes.
And Mr. McKay?
Yes. So I'm going to announce to the public here and online that the Verizon matter will be heard at the January 8th meeting. There'll be no further notices given or issued on behalf of Verizon for that meeting. All right, next we have a couple of resolutions. The first resolution, 2024-27, JDEB Marne Highway LLC. That's Resolution B on your list. A motion to accept that resolution as drafted.
So moved.
I'll second.
Roll call?
Mr. Bradley?
Yes.
Ms. Cosco?
Yes.
Mrs. Twardy?
Yes.
Mrs. Kelly?
Yes.
Mayor Gilmore?
Yes.
Mr. Tricoci?
Yes.
Mrs. Baggio?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
And Mr. McKay?
Yes. Jumping back to A, which I missed in the first go-around, we have Resolution 24-26, D'Angelo and Carnell. It's a variance for a second garage and setback. I have a motion to accept that resolution as drafted.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call?
Mr. Bradley?
Yes.
Ms. Twardy?
Yes.
Mrs. Kelly?
Yes.
Mayor Gilmore?
Yes.
Mr. Tricoci?
Yes.
Mrs. Baggio?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Ms. Cosco?
I'll vote yes, even though I don't have it.
And Mr. McKay?
I just want to see it.
Yes. Last resolution, 2024-28, it's BTC 3 Hainsport Urban Renewal, 1-year extension of minor subdivision approval for 2 warehouses. May I have a motion to grant that resolution as drafted? We have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Gus, sounds like you were quicker on the trigger. Roll call.
Mayor Gilmore?
Yes.
Mrs. Kelly?
Yes.
Mrs. Twardy?
Yes.
Mr. Bradley?
Yes.
Mr. Tricoci?
Yes.
Mrs. Baggio?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Ms. Casco?
Yes.
Mr. McKay?
Yes. We have a pile of correspondence. If any member wishes to deal with any one in particular, please speak up. Otherwise, a motion to receive and file the correspondence would be in order.
I make a motion that we receive and file correspondence.
Second. I'm sorry, I heard a second, but...
Mr. Tricocci?
Okay.
Somewhere over there.
Out of the sky came a second. Roll call.
Mrs. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Tricocci?
Yes.
Mrs. Torti?
Yes.
Mr. Bradley?
Yes.
Mayor Gilmore?
Yes.
Mrs. Baggio?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Ms. Casco?
Yes.
And Mr. McKay?
Yes. Board comments? Any special we haven't already spoken about?
Yes, I have a comment. It's really with mixed emotions that I'm making this announcement that as of December 31st, 2024, I will be resigning from this board. I have been on here on the board for 25 years. I followed my father's, I'm following the generation my father was on. At that time, it was it wasn't land use, it was...
Planning and Zoning Board.
He was on the zoning board. And so I'm leaving it for the next generation to follow through.
Well, Tish, you're going to be missed. You're going to be missed, and sorry to hear that. I'm sure the committee will be equally sorry to hear it when the news gets to them. But all these many years, you've done a great job. And you didn't mention it, but I know you're on the environmental committee, and you've done a great job on that.
Yeah, I'll probably still be attending that meeting as a regular citizen.
Sure.
And if I attend this meeting at least through the winter months, I'll probably do it on Zoom.
Good, good.
I have something to say as well. I have also tendered my resignation effective December 1 due to personal reasons that just make it very difficult for me to continue. I cannot beat the 25 years that Tish has, but I have really truly enjoyed serving my community.
You stepped up when it was, I
Yes,
appreciate it. You
Yes.
stepped up when it was needed.
So this will be my last meeting.
You won't be here for December?
No, I'm making it effective December
We're just
1.
getting used to each other.
Well, I figured
There was
this would
something
give
you said.
the committee, the township council, time to, move someone else into the position in time for the reorg in January.
Well,
So thank you all.
your participation was greatly appreciated.
Thank you. Thank you for your service, both of you. We will be missed. Thank you very much.
I hope we don't have any more.
Yeah, I was gonna say, more board comments.
We usually. Chairman, I have something. This goes back to Tuesday with the voting and everything. I just thought people that have been in here working, that they stepped up. They're handing out water to the people. They were, Mr. Softy came out, they did everything that they possibly
That was public.
could in a situation, and my hat's off to that, because I was only here for 3.5 hours, but that's another point.
Oh, 22.
Well, that is absolutely
Yeah,
true.
3 hours.
And as you all probably know, in some states in this country, you're not even allowed to give somebody a glass of water when they stand in the,
Wow.
or the bathroom. And so we're a little, we,
My hat's off to all of you that,
Great job.
I mean, I don't know if I was allowed.
Absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah.
it was phenomenal.
We had to give water. We had to.
Yeah.
We had to.
Some things you just,
Yeah.
And the music was a nice touch.
Yeah, this was a great touch.
Who doesn't like yacht rock radio?
I did hear somebody complaining about Yacht Rock. I'm not sure what they wanted.
Because they got the slow song hour once they hit the corner.
I also heard Chick-fil-A was out there.
Yes,
Yeah,
they were.
yeah,
I heard too. And Mr. Softy, I heard.
Yeah, Mr. Softy was there.
Chick-fil-A ran out of food, went and got more food, and sold out
I mean,
again. Yes,
And
yes.
to see the city workers hand out water, I mean, and the elderly get the chairs for them. I mean, I was proud of everything.
Nice. And I'm also proud of the residents because they were wonderful. They stood up, they had little groups and they made their friends and they had a great time getting to know each other and people said it was like a mini township day again, celebration day. So I'm really proud of our residents too.
I'm very proud.
Yes, they did a great job. They were very, very patient. They stood there, they were having fun. We tried to have fun with them and it was so funny. They were coming in and the one gentleman was saying, I said, we can only have like 3 people. And he said, no. He said, these are all my girlfriends. And he had about 6 or 7 of them. And I'm like, well, by all means, bring all your girlfriends. So everybody made new friends and it was a good day. It was a good day.
If I could just quickly add to that, I just want to commend the fire police. I was out directing traffic for a half hour. The parking lot here was just absolute mayhem, and I saw how quickly it was going to spiral out of control. I called Ted Hargrove up, and he was out here with Don Platt and I believe A.J. Watson in 20 minutes. 20 minutes time, took control of the situation here. I also called Sergeant Antonucci and said, we need to get somebody out here on Martin Highway. It's bottlenecking. People are it's a public safety concern. And they had a trooper out here within a half hour. So it's just all hands on deck. Everybody just, when they were called, they sprang into action. Our public works guys at the last minute showed up for us. Committeewoman Torty, you were fantastic. Donna Casey, Sue with the rec department. I mean, no other towns have volunteers generally that step up like that on an election day. And then to be able to, like I said, pivot, adapt, and just deal with the situation. It was just a great group effort. And the residents, honestly, unequivocally, the residents need to be applauded because they were just amazing. The vibe was unbelievable. Everyone was so proud to just be here and vote and proud to like get together with their neighbors. And so many groups of friendships were formed. And it was just like, as crazy as an experience as it was, and as upsetting as all of us 40 municipal clerks are, and that will not be a pass for anybody who was accountable to that, because I'm not okay with it. We are all not okay with it. We still were like, I don't want to tell them that, but it really was a good experience. So, you know what I mean? It's like, it's a bit of a conundrum because I want them to understand how they really set us up for failure. And giving us only 4 voting areas when we've always had 8 is an atrocity. But, sorry, not the right platform, but it was brought up. We're going to talk about it again next week at our committee meeting, but since it was brought up, I just wanted to put that on the record too, so.
And thank you, Paula, because you stepped up. You fought for the
all
extra
did.
machines, you got,
did I.
you had everybody here that we needed.
Yeah.
You put the team together, you led the team.
Thank you.
Great job. Thanks.
Am I allowed to ask who won in the township? I don't even know.
It's not really official.
Andy did. Okay.
In the township, yeah.
It's not official, but, yeah.
So I have 2 comments, questions.
Okay.
That's okay. Is that okay?
Yep.
So, just to let you know, is that we have 2 leaving, and I will be extending my retirement till the end of next year.
Yay.
Thank you. But say it isn't so that you're going to just stick around a year.
Well, we'll work on that next year.
No,
We'll take what we can get now.
And then I do have a legitimate question for Mr. Kingsbury in regards to the application. Is there an enforcement of how I handle the removal of the pigeons? Is there a time frame? Is there something as a zoning official that I need to handle, or?
You're gonna be in tomorrow?
I'm sorry?
You can be in there.
Yes.
And you're not in tomorrow, right?
No, I'm actually not in tomorrow. I'll be back Tuesday.
I'll go.
Okay, we'll talk. Okay.
All right, I think that qualifies. Oh, one board.
I just want to say that it's great to be back. I missed all of you guys. And Ms. Baggio, Ms. Kelly, I'm going to miss you guys, you leaving. And I'm just happy to be back.
So good to have you back.
I'm glad to have you
Good
back.
to have you back.
You're looking strong.
Yes.
I think that
Public comment.
end the board comment period. And we have public comment that we have to ask. Is there public comment? That's the,
I'm glad I'm able to.
that's the most sheepish yes that I've heard in a while.
Don't make us cry anymore.
I just wanted to bring up, going back to the warehouse thing, me and Kathy have been in talks with Mark pretty consistently. Since the sound wall has gone up, the backup beeping is just as atrocious as when the whole process has started. My only concern, I understand they're doing the construction aspect of it now, but when someone moves into the actual place and going back to the original meetings, they don't know if it's going to be a 12-hour facility, 8-hour facility, 24-hour facility. My main concern is if it is a 24-hour facility, the sound wall is not doing what their sound engineer said it was going to do. Is there going to be any sort of testing, I guess, to going along the thing to see what is actually getting projected through this wall?
Kathy, is that close to your jurisdiction?
So one of the things is that I have been dealing with this for quite a while. So has Ms. Costco. We've both been dealing with the neighbors and the contractors themselves. They have been going around and they have been talking to the homeowners. Please hear me out, Charlie.
I'm not.
In regards to, is that you won't find another contractor that will give their cell phone numbers out that the homeowners can call. I will tell you that. With that respect, is that we have dealt with some of the issues at hand in relationship to the sound issue, is that one of the things that we can take a look at, and not at the present time necessarily because it is still, it's completely under construction. They still have a lot of work out here. Where I think the more enforcement end that comes from my offices is that once they get a tenant for this place, is that at that point, if the noise from them jockeying their trucks around, let's per se, is that if that becomes a problem, then this is something that I, as a zoning officer, certainly can address with the builder, as well as the tenant. And if necessary, I then can enforce bringing that back to the board to reassess what is going on. One of the things is that there is a lot of new technology in jockeying trucks back and forth and sound and keeping it low. There's ones where it's like a, what is it? I think it's like a laser or radar or something like that.
It's a boop, boop.
A pulsing. So as much as I appreciate what Mr. Bloom is going through, because I don't live far from the CVS warehouse in Lumberton, so I can certainly understand. Yet I think kind of putting the cart before the horse is that we have to give the opportunity to let the construction die down and wait to see if in the future that the applicant and the tenant are making the same type of noise as the construction equipment makes. I don't know how the board feels about that, yet I think it's fair to help our homeowner, yet I think we have to also let the job be done. I'm not an engineer, none of us are. Ours isn't here. So I think there is room that the town really does need to take a look at this in the future of how it does affect our residents, and we certainly hold the key. As a zoning officer, I have the right to bring them back for assessment of that. And I don't know how the board feels.
Well, they've also promised vegetation to be planted in between the 6-foot vinyl fence that they installed for the neighbors along that angle side. So there is going to be vegetation that's going to be planted that also serves as a sound buffer. But like Kathy said, I mean, they are in the middle of construction. I'm going to venture to guess, while I'm not an engineer, there's there's different noise that's emulating from building construction as opposed to, the actual operations. But yeah, we have to let the building complete and then reassess. I mean, I suspect, honestly, there's probably going to be some concerns once it's done and over with, and we have to address them as they present themselves. But I know that Joe Fieri has been in touch and is working towards, addressing their concerns and being available and, trying to, provide relief to those neighbors along Ingleside.
And like I said, I understand the construction aspect, but the one thing that will not change is the backup beepers. And going back, I'm sorry, I have like the photographic memory craziness. Going back to the meeting, Joe, because backup beepers was brought up at that meeting, and Joe's response to that was, unfortunately, we are not in control of what truck drivers bring into the yard and do the deliveries. Whatever they set their truck to, the warehouse will not be able to they don't have, there is a chance that they could do it if everything's in-house, but they can't promise that that's an actual thing that it's going to
That's
occur.
true, they can't promise it, because right now, they are the developer of that. This comes down to the tenant themselves. I
Right.
know this because I've taken this to Lumberton Township, and I've had the sound reduced. There is a way to reduce backup beepers on trucks.
Right, but it's a matter of if, I'm honestly not coming up to complain about anything. I just want to nip it in the bud before it actually comes down the line and something's going in and,
But we can't put the cart before the horse.
yeah.
And you have my email, you have everything.
And you have a ton of emails from me.
me.
Yeah,
So with that, I ask that you give us the opportunity.
Absolutely.
Enforcement to, let's wait to see what we get in there.
Absolutely.
Because what you have to remember is that I also have to know, as a zoning officer, I have to know who's going in there. I have to know the hours of operation. I have to take a look at the resolution,
Right.
what they approve.
when they're doing trash and
These
stuff, right.
criterias that will be established at that time.
Yep.
I'll give you an example, the one across the street. They were stacking piles of crates for miles on this property. The resolution said they can have outside storage. Within less than 2 weeks, it was enforced and they were removed. It will be the same way here
Right.
on yours.
And unfortunately, Mark is no longer returning my messages after I texted him at 1:30 in the morning after I had lights and concrete trucks.
Construction right now.
Right. No, I know, but they aren't open to discussion. Mark's not open to discussion anymore. I'm sure.
I'm open to a discussion.
No, I'm just saying when you let it be known that they are open to talking to the residents. That kind of died down after I texted them at 1:30 when I had lights blasting through my,
And the lights are now, that's resolved because the wall's up.
right, right.
And we got that resolved.
Because we had a good show.
All right, so it sounds like we diary this for once construction is finished. Did you?
Oh, yeah, like I said, unfortunately, I just want to get everyone aware, I do enjoy the township, I do enjoy this whole process. I've been dealing with Kathy quite a bit, so I just wanted to bring it to everyone else's eyes that the things that the residents are actually seeing, because unfortunately it is a bit of a pain to try to get out here. I have 2 kids.
Sure.
So.
Sure, we see it.
Yep.
Thank you.
You see the bags under the eyes from the kids? Is that what it is?
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, are there any other public comments online?
There's no one else.
No one else online, all right. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Yes.
Second.
We just seconded Karen.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We're done. Thanks, Doug. Thanks, Gus, appreciate it.
You were my buddy, you taught me what to do.